All right, we're back for Dustius's ongoing coverage of Fragicago 2024. I'm here with jchancE of Take Flyte, who has finally arrived after unfortunately missing the opening match versus Ethos V2. So to start, where were you during that opening match against the main team, I believe?
Unfortunately, I was at work. I had to leave a little bit late, but I did make it for the rest of the event.
And that's sort of been a trend, I think, in your recent history, quite unfortunately, because I do remember at the start of the RMR closed qualifier, you missed that opening series. You missed that opening series due to your work commitments as well. Was that really frustrating of you to come, so close to making your match and only being a couple minutes late?
Yeah, it's a little bit annoying. I mean, I wish more events started after 5 p.m., 6 p.m. during the week, or more events on the weekends because there are a lot of players, especially in North America, that do work full time. And I have a family that I support. I have a son and a wife. So, work commitments are important, but I always work to try to make my dream come true because I love Counter-Strike.
And you mentioned having a wife and a son, and so I think that shows that you're more of a veteran breed of players than some of these plucky 18-year-old, 19-year-olds who have just come into the scene in CS2. In fact, you've been around for quite a number of years in the space, starting your playing career in 2015. For those who don't know, you played in some of the early seasons of MDL around season 24, season 25 to season 29 with teams like Fam 143, Think Outside the Box, Blackwood Productions. To sort of educate our younger viewers who have just come in the scene in the last couple of years, what was it like playing in the MDL scene back in 2017?
It was definitely a little bit of a different environment. I think a lot of players have learned certain aspects of the game. It's more competitive nowadays, and people have had a lot of time to learn the game. So it's different in that aspect. It was definitely a good time, and there were a lot of veteran players that played back then that don't play now. So it's just a different environment, I would say, overall.
And with that, at the end of your time sort of in MDL, you took a number of years off from the game and then came back a few years later to start over again in ESA Advanced. What prompted you to sort of come back into the game and start playing semi-professionally again?
So I've always loved Counter-Strike, and I just needed to take a couple years for personal growth and, kind of really start off a career. And I never left my dream of Counter-Strike behind because I just really like playing the game, and there's a lot of friends that I've met along the way, and that's really what brought me back.
And the team that brought you on the road back was originally named Spectre, then you played for a while as No More, and now you're at Take Flyte. So that roster has existed essentially unchanged since August of 2023. That's a rarity in ESA Advanced and ECL to have a team that's been together for such a long time. What do you see sort of the advantages of your team having been together so long and not having decided to make roster changes and over the course of the last couple of seasons?
It definitely helps us grow in certain aspects, and, there's upsides and downsides. Yeah, we lack the honeymoon period, but at the same time, we know each other very well, and it helps us understand certain situations that newer teams can't. It's kind of a thing that on almost every team I've played on. I've always I believe that it's good to stick with a core set of players, and that's how I've always had success in Counter-Strike, making it to MDL or ECL multiple times, is sticking with a solid core of players and not changing things up just because things go wrong every once in a while, and trying to grow past that.
And with that Spectre lineup, you returned to ECL in season 47, which means there was about an 18-season gap between your last season of MDL and your first season of ECL, which are, for those who don't know, are the same product under different names. How did you feel about finally being able to return to the top tier of the semi-professional scene after such a long time? Were you really proud of that moment to show that you could still do it after so many years?
Yeah, it definitely felt really, really good. I mean, we won Advanced, which just was a great feeling overall. We've had some disappointing results in ECL, but I do believe that this roster has the potential to at least be a middle-of-the-pack ECL team, and maybe even past that if we can get to that point. But we just have some hurdles that we're trying to fight, and I definitely think that we can do it.
Now, Last season, the One More squad found themselves in relegation, surviving relegation and returning to ECL. The traditional thinking would be, okay, we started relegation. We need to make roster changes now that we've survived to live fight another day. Was that ever discussion on the team that we need to make roster changes? And why did the squad ultimately decide not to make roster changes?
It's always a thought when things aren't going the greatest that they can to make roster changes. I think it's the first thought, especially in the Counter-Strike scene in general. But there's so many things that go along with roster changes that, take time. And we had a really solid foundation built that we thought, we could take into the next season and have a better season than we did the previous, which so far, obviously the results haven't been what we expected. But, I mean, there's still more matches in the season, and we definitely hope for the best. But to answer your question, there's definitely always thoughts about roster changes when things aren't going the way you expect.
Definitely. Now, we're turning our attention back to the RMR Close qualifier. Take Flyte, I think, surprised a lot of people by first taking that initial win over Lag with Champ standing in, and then playing a really close game playing a very close game against Legacy once you were finally able to come back in the roster. But I believe Champ was still once again in for Grave. The level shown at the RMRCQ was, I think, the best we've ever seen Take Flyte play in a long while. What do you think went right for the team in the RMRCQ, and what's it going to take to sort of bring that same level into ECL?
It's just a level of confidence and what I would call firing on all cylinders. I feel like one of our biggest problems is just having one player, and it could be any one of us, say, oh, I'm having an off game. I can't shoot back. I'm uncomfortable. And I think what's going to get us past that is recognizing that earlier in games and making sure we're playing roles correctly so that the people who are, playing well can end up winning the game for us.
What's the expectation for this event, and what would you be satisfied with in terms of a result here today, this weekend?
There aren't really any big expectations. Obviously, we would love to come out with a win or at least make it to finals. But we're here to have fun and just be friends and be a team and do the best that we can.
All right, so that is the jchancE of Take Flyte. They'll be playing their upper bracket match in short order in their group. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you in action soon.